Section 10 of Modern Magic. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Modern Magic, a practical treatise on the art of conjuring, by Professor Hoffmann. Tricks involving sleight of hand or the use of specially prepared cards. Part 4. To allow several persons each to draw a card, and the pack having been shuffled, to make another card drawn haphazard change successively into each of those first chosen. Invite a person to draw a card. This first card need not be forced, as it is not essential for you to know what card it is, so long as you afterward keep it in sight. When the card is returned to the pack, insert the little finger under it and make the pass in order to bring it to the bottom. Make the first of the false shuffles, and leave it at the bottom. Again make the pass to bring it to the middle of the pack, and force the same card on a second and again on a third person, each time making a false shuffle, and leaving the chosen card, which we will call A, ultimately in the hands of the last person who drew. Footnote: the different drawers should be persons tolerably far apart, as it is essential that they should not discover that they have all drawn the same card. End footnote. When you have concluded the last shuffle, which, the card not now being in the pack, may be a genuine one, you offer the pack to some person who has not yet drawn, and allow him to draw any card he pleases, which second card we will call B. You open the pack, and ask the persons holding the two cards to replace them one on the other, that first chosen, A, being placed last, in other words, uppermost. You make the pass to bring them to the top, and palm them, and then immediately hand the pack to be shuffled by one of the company. This being done, you replace them on the top of the pack, and spreading the cards and appearing to reflect a moment, pick out by the backs as many cards as there have been persons who drew, in other words 4, including among them the two cards A and B. Exhibiting the 4 cards, you ask each drawer to say, without naming his card, whether his card is among them. The reply is, of course, in the affirmative. Each person who drew, seeing his own card among those shown, naturally assumes that the remaining cards are those of the other drawers, and the remainder of the audience, finding the drawers satisfied, are fully convinced that the cards shown are the 4 which were drawn. You now replace the cards in different parts of the pack, placing the 2 actually drawn in the middle, and secretly make the pass to bring them to the top. Then, spreading the cards, you invite another person to draw, which you allow him to do wherever he chooses. When he has done so, you request him to name aloud his card, which we will call C. Holding the card aloft, you ask each of the former drawers in succession, "Is this your card?" to which each answers, "No." After having received this answer for the last time, you change the card by the first method for the top card. You now have the card A, the one drawn several times, in your hand, while B has become the top card, and C, which you have just exhibited, is at the bottom. You continue, before showing A, "You are all agreed that this is not your card. You had better not be too sure. I will ask you one by one. You, sir," addressing the first drawer, "are you quite sure this is not your card?" He is obliged to own that it is now his card. "Pardon me," you say, breathing gently on the back of the card, "it may have been so a moment ago, but now it is this lady's," exhibiting it to the second drawer, who also acknowledges it as her card. To the third person you say, "I think you drew a card, did you not? May I ask you to blow upon the back of this card? It has changed again, you see, for now it is your card." The card having been again recognized, you continue, "There was no one else, I think," at the same moment again making the change by the first method, so that A is now at the bottom and B in your hand. The person who drew B will no doubt remind you that you have not yet shown him his card. You profess to have quite forgotten him, and, feigning to be a little embarrassed, ask what his card was. He names it accordingly, upon which you ask him to blow upon the card you hold, and, turning it over, show that it has now turned into that card. Then, again making the change, you remark, "Everybody has certainly had his card now." Then, yourself blowing upon the card you hold, which is now an indifferent one, you show it, and remark, "You observe that now it is nobody's card." In this trick, as in every other which mainly depends upon forcing a given card, there is always the possibility that some person may, either by accident or from a malicious desire to embarrass you, insist upon drawing some other card. This, however, must not discourage you. In the first place, when you have once thoroughly acquired the knack of forcing, the victim will 9 times out of 10 draw the card you desire, even though doing his utmost to exercise, as he supposes, an absolutely free choice. And the risk may be still further diminished by offering the cards to persons whose physiognomy designates them as likely to be good-naturedly easy in their selection. But if such a contretemps should occur in the trick we have just described, it is very easily met. You will remember that the first card drawn is not forced, but freely chosen. It is well to make the most of this fact, and for that purpose, before beginning the trick, to offer the cards to be shuffled by several persons in succession, and specially to draw the attention of the audience to the fact that you cannot possibly have any card in view. When the card is chosen, offer to allow the drawer, if he has the slightest suspicion that you know what it is, to return it and take another. He may or may not accept the offer, but your evident indifference as to the card chosen will make the audience the less likely to suspect you afterwards of desiring to put forward any particular card. If, notwithstanding, a wrong card is drawn the second time, leave it in the hand of the drawer, and at once offer the cards to another person, and again endeavour to force the proper card, A, and let the wrong card take the place of B in the foregoing description. In the very unlikely event of a second wrong card being drawn, leave that also for the moment in the hands of the drawer, and let that card take the place of C in the finish of the trick. To make 4 aces change to 4 kings, and 4 kings to 4 aces. This very effective trick is performed by the aid of 4 cards, which are so prepared as to appear aces on the one side and kings on the other. To make them, take 4 ordinary aces and 4 ordinary kings, and peel off half the thickness of each card. This may be easily done by splitting one corner of the card with a sharp penknife, when the remainder can be pulled apart without difficulty. The cards being thus reduced in thickness, paste back to back the king and the ace of each suit, placing them in a press or under a heavy weight, that they may dry perfectly smooth and flat. Better still, entrust the process to some person who is accustomed to mounting photographs, when, at a trifling cost, you will have your double-faced cards thoroughly well made. Place these 4 cards beforehand in different parts of the pack, the ace side downwards, in other words, in the same direction as the faces of the other cards. Place the genuine aces face downwards on the top of the pack, which being thus disposed, you are ready to begin the trick. Take the pack in your hand, face uppermost. Remark, "For this trick I want the aces and kings," and pick out, one by one, the real kings and the sham aces. Lay these cards on the table, the kings face upwards, and the prepared cards with the ace side uppermost. Draw the attention of the audience to these cards, and meanwhile make the pass so as to bring the 2 halves of the pack face to face, when the 4 genuine aces will, unknown to the audience, be at the lower end of the pack. Place the 4 kings ostentatiously upon the opposite end of the pack, in other words, that which is for the time being uppermost. You now borrow a hat. Placing the pack for a moment on the table, and taking the 4 false aces in one hand, and the hat in the other, place the aces on the table, and cover them with the hat, at the same moment turning them over. Then, taking the pack in your hand, once more show the kings, and replacing them, say, "I shall now order these 4 kings to pass under the hat, and the 4 aces to return to the pack. I have only to touch the cards with my wand, and say, 'Pass,' and the change is accomplished." As you touch the cards with the wand, turn over the pack, the bringing together of the hands and the gentle tap with the wand effectually covering the slight movement of the hand. If you do not use the wand, a semicircular sweep of the hand, which holds the cards in the direction of the hat, as you say "Pass," will answer the same purpose. Having shown that the cards have changed according to command, you may, by repeating the process, cause the cards to return to their original positions. It is better not to carry the trick further than this, or some of the audience may possibly ask to be allowed to examine the cards, which would be embarrassing. After the trick is over, make the pass to bring the pack right again, and then get the double-faced cards out of the way as soon as possible. The best way to do this without exciting suspicion is to take them up in the right hand and apparently turn them over and leave them on the top of the pack, but in reality palm them and slip them into your pocket or elsewhere out of sight. After having done this, you may safely leave the pack within reach of the audience, who, if they examine it, finding none but ordinary cards, will be more than ever puzzled as to your modus operandi. Having made 4 packets of cards with an ace at the bottom of each, to bring all 4 aces into whichever packet the company may choose. Take the 4 aces, or any other 4 cards of equal value, from the pack, and throw them face upwards on the table. While the company's attention is being drawn to them, make the pass, as in the last trick, so as to bring the 2 halves of the pack face to face. The company, having satisfied themselves that the 4 cards shown are really the 4 aces, and are without preparation, take them up and replace them face downwards upon the top of the pack, which you hold in the left hand, remarking, "I am going to show you a trick with these 4 aces. I shall first place them on the table and put 3 indifferent cards on each of them. Meanwhile, get the thumb of the left hand in position for the turnover, and the instant that you have drawn off the top card with the right hand, turn over the pack, which the movement of the hands in removing the top card will enable you to do without attracting notice. This top card is really an ace, and you may therefore show it, as if by accident, while placing it on the table. Lay it face downwards, and then place 3 cards from the end you have just brought uppermost, which the audience will believe to be the other 3 aces, in a line with it on the table. Next, place 3 more cards, taken from the same end of the pack, upon each of the 3 cards last dealt. When you come to that first dealt, the genuine ace, before dealing the 3 cards upon it, you must again turn over the pack, thereby bringing the 3 aces on the top. You thus have upon the table 4 packets of 4 cards each, 1 packet consisting of aces only, and the remaining 3 packets of indifferent cards. But the audience imagine that the aces are divided, and that there is 1 at the foot of each packet. You may now ask any one to touch 2 out of the 4 packets. The 2 packets which he touches may include, or may not include, the one containing the 4 aces. Whichever be the case, take up and put aside the 2 which do not include the packet of aces, and remark, "We will place these aside," an observation which will be equally appropriate whether those were the 2 touched or not. Next, ask the same or another person to touch one of the 2 remaining packets, and in like manner add that one which does not contain the aces to the 2 already set aside. Placing these 3 packets on the table, request some one of the company to place his hand upon them and hold them tightly. Then, taking the remaining packet yourself, observe, "You have 3 aces and I have only 1, but by virtue of my magic power I shall compel those 3 aces to leave your hand and come to mine. I just touch the back of your hand, so," touching it with the cards you hold, "and say, 'Pass.' The change is already accomplished. Here are all 4 aces. Please to examine your own cards, when you will find that you have not a single ace left. Let me remind you that the audience chose, and not I, which of the 4 packets you should take, and which one I should retain." Footnote: It will be observed that this trick is terminated after the manner described on page 45, to which the reader is recommended to refer, as the above description will be more clearly intelligible by the aid of the further explanations there given. End footnote. There is another method of performing this trick, which dispenses with the necessity of turning over the pack. In this case, as you place the 4 aces on the top of the pack, you insert the little finger of the left hand under the 3 uppermost, and make the pass to bring these 3 to the bottom, still, however, keeping the finger between them and the rest of the pack. You deal out the 4 top cards, supposed to be the 4 aces, as above, and 3 others on each of the 3 non-aces. You next ask some person to draw any 3 cards, taking care not to let him draw one of the 3 at the bottom, and place them at the top of the pack. The moment he has done so, you again make the pass, thus bringing the 3 aces upon them. You then say, taking off, without showing, the 3 top cards, Now I will take these 3 cards, freely drawn from the middle of the pack, and place them here on this last ace. From this point the course of the trick is the same as already described. To change the 4 aces, held tightly by a person, into 4 indifferent cards. This is a most brilliant trick, and puzzles even adepts in card conjuring. In combination with the shower of aces, which next follows, it was one of the principal feats of the elder Conus, and subsequently of the celebrated Comte. The trick is performed as follows. You begin by announcing that you require the assistance of some gentleman who never believes anything that he is told. The audience generally take this as a joke, but for the purpose of this trick it is really rather an advantage to have the assistance of a person who will take nothing for granted, and will be satisfied with nothing short of ocular demonstration of any fact which you desire him to concede. Some little fun may be made in the selection, but a volunteer having at last been approved of, you request him to step forward to your table. Selecting from the pack the 4 aces, you ask him to say aloud what cards those are, at the same time holding them up that all may see them. Then, laying the aces face upwards on the table, you hand him the remainder of the cards, and ask him to ascertain and state to the company whether there is any peculiarity about the cards, and whether, in particular, there are any other aces in the pack. His reply is in the negative. You then ask whether any other person would like to examine the pack. All being satisfied, you take the pack face downwards in your left hand, and picking up the 4 aces with the right, place them on the top, at the same moment slightly ruffling the cards. Then, taking the aces one by one without showing them, you place them face downwards on the table. Addressing the person assisting you, you say, "I place these 4 aces on the table." You admit that they are the 4 aces. Your victim, not having seen the faces of the cards since they were replaced on the pack, and having noticed the slight sound produced by your ruffling the cards, will in all probability say that he does not admit anything of the sort. "Why," you reply, "you have only just seen them, but I'll show them to you again if you like." Turning them face upwards, you show that the 4 cards really are the aces, and again replace them on the pack. Ruffle the cards, and deal out the 4 aces face downwards as before. You again ask your assistant whether he is certain this time that the 4 cards on the table are the aces. He may possibly be still incredulous, but if he professes himself satisfied, you ask him what he will bet that these cards are really the aces, and that you have not conjured them away already. He will naturally be afraid to bet, and you remark, "Ah, I could tell by the expression of your countenance that you were not quite satisfied. I'm afraid you are sadly wanting in faith, but as I can't perform the trick, for the sake of my own reputation, until you are thoroughly convinced, I will show you the cards once more." This you do, and again replace them on the pack, but before doing so, slip the little finger of the left hand under the top card of the pack. Again take off the aces with the finger and thumb of the right hand, carrying with them at the same time this top card. Then, with a careless gesture of the right hand toward the audience, so as to show them the face of the undermost card, the one you have just added, you continue, "I really can't imagine what makes you so incredulous. Here are the aces." You replace the 5 cards on the pack. "I take them one by one, so, and place them on the table. Surely there is no possibility of sleight of hand here. Are you all satisfied that these are really the aces now?" The audience having noted, as you intended them to do, that the 5th or bottom card was not an ace, naturally conclude that other cards have been by some means substituted for the aces, and when you ask the question for the last time, you are met by a general shout of "No." You say, with an injured expression, "Really, ladies and gentlemen, if you are all such unbelievers, I may as well retire at once. I should hope that at least you will have the grace to apologize for your unfounded suspicions." Then, turning to the person assisting you, you continue, "Sir, as every act of mine appears to be an object of suspicion, perhaps you will kindly show the company that those are the aces, and replace them yourself on the top of the pack." This he does, but during the course of the above little discussion you have taken the opportunity to count off, and palm in your right hand, the 5 top cards of the pack. It is hardly necessary to observe that while doing this you must scrupulously refrain from looking at your hands. The mode of counting is to push forward the cards one by one with the thumb, and to check them with the third finger of the left hand. A very little practice will enable you to count off any number of cards by feel, in this manner, with the greatest ease. When the aces are replaced on the top of the pack, you transfer the pack from the left to the right hand, thus bringing the palmed cards above them. Then, placing the whole pack on the table, face downwards, inquire, "Will you be good enough to tell me where the aces are now?" The answer is generally very confident, "On the top of the pack." Without taking the pack in your hand, you take off one by one the 4 top cards, and lay them face downwards on the table, as before. Then, taking up the 5th card and exhibiting it to the company, observe, "You see there are no more aces left, but if you like you can look through the pack." So saying, you take up the cards, and run them rapidly over with their faces towards the spectators, taking care, however, not to expose either of the 5 at the top, 4 of which are the genuine aces. Then, addressing your assistant, you say, "The company being at last satisfied, perhaps you will be good enough to place your hand on those 4 cards, and hold them as tightly as possible." Then, holding the pack in the left hand, you take between the first finger and thumb of the right hand the top card of the pack, being the only one left of the 5 you palmed and placed over the aces, and say, "Now I am going to take 4 indifferent cards one after the other, and exchange them for the 4 aces in this gentleman's hand." Observe the simplicity of the process. I take the card that first comes to hand. Here you show the face of the card that you hold, which we will suppose to be the 7 of diamonds. I don't return it to the pack, even for a moment, but merely touch the hand with it, and it becomes the ace of, say, spades, which you show it to be. At the words "return it to the pack," you move the card with what is taken to be merely an indicative gesture towards the pack, and at the same instant change it, by the third method, for the top card of the pack, which is one of the aces. You now have the 7 of diamonds at the top of the pack, with the remaining 3 aces immediately following it. You must not show this 7 of diamonds a second time, and it is therefore necessary to get it out of the way. The neatest way of doing this is as follows. You remark, "To show you that I take the cards just as they come, I will give them a shuffle," which you do as indicated for the first of the false shuffles, subject to the modification following. Pass into the right hand the first top card, the 7 of diamonds, alone, and upon this card pass the next 3, which are the 3 aces, then the rest of the cards indifferently. When all the cards are thus passed into the right hand, shuffle them again anyhow, but take care to conclude by bringing the 4 lowest cards to the top. You will now have the 3 aces uppermost, and the 7 of diamonds in the 4th place. Taking off the top card, and drawing it sharply over the hand of the person assisting, you show that it is also an ace, and in like manner with the next card, making, if you choose, a false shuffle between. After the 3rd ace has been shown, make a false shuffle, and finally leave at the top the last ace, with 1 card above it. This may be effected by bringing up from the bottom, in concluding the shuffle, the 2 bottom cards, instead of the last, the ace, only. Taking the top card between the thumb and the first finger of the right hand, and showing it with apparent carelessness, so as to give the company the opportunity of remarking that it is not an ace, you replace it on the pack for an instant, saying, "We have had 3 aces, I think. Which is it that is wanting?" Here you glance down at the aces on the table. "Oh, the ace of diamonds. Then the card that I hold must change to the ace of diamonds." You must have meanwhile effected the change, and turning up the card you hold, you show that it is the ace of diamonds. You may, if you please, use the first instead of the 3rd method of making the change and performing this trick, but the first method demands a higher degree of dexterity to make it equally deceptive, and the movement used in the 3rd method has in this instance the advantage of appearing to be the natural accompaniment of the words of the performer. End of section 10.